Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, the IDF lifts the gag order on its most recent operation against Hamas. Meanwhile, Iran victim-blaming author Salman Rushdie following the attempt on his life last week. But Rushdie is far from Tehran's only target. And finally, a retrospective look at the life and musical legacy of the late Israeli icon, Zvika Pick. Breaking dawn, apparently not the only major Israeli military operation recently run against terror groups in Gaza. The IDF today lifting a press embargo regarding the neutralization of a Hamas terror tunnel as well.
בשבועות האחרונים פועלים כוחות אוגדת עזה במרחב החטיבה הצפונית לסיכולה של מנהרת טרור של ארגון החמאס. מדובר במנהרה התקפית בעלת שתי הסתעפויות אשר חצתה לשטח ישראל, אך לא חצתה את מרחב המכשול הביטחוני החדש.
As Israeli jets pounding Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror targets last weekend, the IDF simultaneously conducting another counter-terror mission. The IDF Gaza division finishing the job on a Hamas terror tunnel that had been previously identified by Israel's underground sensory wall during Operation Guardian of the Walls in May 2021. Brigadier General Aloni explaining that they recently identified efforts to restore the old tunnel route after it had been sealed off in the previous round of fighting.
סיכול המנהרה מצטרף לשורה ארוכה של מבצעים גלויים וחשאיים, אשר הובילו לפגיעה קשה בפרויקט מנהרות הפשיטה של חמאס, ואנחנו נוסיף לרדוף אותם.
Meanwhile, Israeli security forces continuing with nightly arrest raids in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem, resulting in the total apprehension of 19 more terror suspects, as well as the seizure of makeshift weapons and vehicles thought used in recent attacks. Then similarly, undercover border police troops arriving in the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Kafir Aqab overnight to search a home for illegally owned weapons. The Palestinian resident fatally shot by the troops, though, when he attempted to stab them and prevent them from conducting the search. Over a week now passing since Operation Breaking Dawn ended through ceasefire, and Israel hailing its combined policy on Gaza as a major success. This as the IDF liaison to the Palestinians reports its latest numbers. Proof of concept achieved for Israel's, quote, combined policy towards Gaza, or at least so says Major General Ghassan Alian, the head of the Israeli Coordinator of Government Activities in the Palestinian Territories, or COGAT. The two-pronged policy consisting of military force to thwart terror group buildup and a proactive civilian policy aimed at the general public. Alian saying Gazan residents must know that we have no interest in getting dragged into another war with them, and that Palestinians must see the damage terrorism causes them, adding that Israel will continue to allow a civilian humanitarian policy as long as security is stable. As for proof that the policy is trending well, COGAT pointing to a marked improvement in Gaza's economy with some 14,000 Gazans working in Israel every day, a 5.5% drop in unemployment, and a rise in exports to both the West Bank and to Israel by over 20% and 93% respectively over the last year. Meantime, in the so-called Gaza envelope, Israel approving of an immediate assistance and compensation package for Israelis impacted by the recent conflict.
הממשלה הזו לא תיעלם מחייהם מיד כשהתותחים מפסיקים לירות. ישבנו עם ראשי הרשויות בעוטף, והחבילה שמובאת היום היא תוצר של העבודה איתם ומולם.
Moving on, Israel among the many countries condemning Iran and its history of incitement for the stabbing of author Salman Rushdie last week. And this after a number of other attempted Iranian assassinations, including of former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton and Israeli officials in Turkey. So the question remaining is, how far-reaching is Iran's arm of terror? Joining me to discuss is Iran expert from the Esri Center of Haifa University, Tamar Elam Gintin. Tamar, it's great to have you with us. Now, Iran is blaming Rushdie for his own stabbing, saying his writings crossed the red line of Islam. Do they really believe that the Ayatollah's fatwa has nothing to do with the attack, or is that just a political way of saying he deserved it?
What he wrote in Satanic Verses is what made Ayatollah Khomeini issue the fatwa that says that what he committed is called irtidad, or irtidad in Arabic, which means he's a Muslim who renounced Islam.
An apostate.
And this is the highest sin. He mocked Islam, he renounced Islam, and this is why he deserved, that they say, he deserved this fatwa, and he was sentenced to death, actually. And he escaped this fate for 33 years while others didn't.
How many attempts on Salman's life were there that we know of before today?
We know there was an attempt in the 90s, but we also know that his Japanese translator was killed in a murder attempt of his Turkish translator. 37 other people were killed. The Turkish translator was not killed. The Norwegian publisher and the Italian translator were also injured.
So many people around him have been caught in the crossfire. How many similar Iranian fatwas are there, and how far back do they go? Because, as we know, again, Rushdie's goes back to, I think, 1988.
Yeah, I think the issuing such fatwas goes centuries back.
Right.
It's part of the essentials of Islam. But in present times, we can talk about Shaheen Najafi, who also has to live underground because of a rap song that he wrote, and in the video he mocked the lyrics and the video mock Islam. And we know that Masih Ali-Nejad, the reporter who was the leader of the hijab protest, the longest standing protest in Iran right now in the past few years, longest and most widespread. She lives in the States, but she's under constant threats from the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, we see here a video that she actually posted to social media of an alleged Iranian agent outside her front door. He was pulled over later with money and weapons. So again, though, how often do people act on these fatwas? Because again, it's been 30 years since Rushdie was condemned to death. It's been over 10 since some of the other people you just mentioned. I forget, Shaheen Najafi for one. It's been 10 years since he was sentenced. How many people are there out there who are acting on these fatwas? Is it 1% of Iranians worldwide, or more, less?
Oh, it's very hard to assess the numbers. I know that most Iranians would not act upon these fatwas, and a large majority, I think it's a majority, don't even like Islam. I mean, most Iranians I know, most Iranians that I meet online, are either very, very religious fundamentalist, or detest Islam and say, I'm not Muslim. Some of them become Christian or Buddhist or Zoroastrian, or want to be Jewish, but they can't. And others just say, I'm not religious. I have no religion. So they are all guilty of irtidad, but not all of them have a fatwa on their heads.
Right.
They talk about freedom of religion, of speech, but they don't let us talk like this about our enemies. They talk about respecting others, but they don't respect Islam. And they talk about being trustworthy, but then after we reached the JCPOA in 2015 with Obama, Trump comes and withdraws from the agreement. They withdrew first. It was the U.S. that violated the agreement first. So both sides can't trust each other.
But again, that seems to be a more recent equivocation, whereas you said some of these fatwas, just from the Iranian regime, go back decades. In many cases before the Islamic Revolution.
Before the regime.
Right.
Even before it was the Islamic regime. One very famous person who was also executed for irtidad was Ahmadi Kasravi. He was executed he was killed in the 1940s, before Salman Rushdie was even born.
Right.
Because he said things like Iranian people should give the clergy the government in order to realize how bad Islam is. He was sort of a prophet.
All right.
And
Tamal,
he was killed for saying such words.
Tamal, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Now, multiple Iranian targets damaged in Syria late Sunday night, killing at least 3 servicemen and wounding 3 others. And of course, Israel allegedly behind the attacks. Israel alleged to have struck several Iranian and Iran-backed targets in Syria overnight. The simultaneous airstrikes emanating from Lebanon and the Mediterranean Sea towards Damascus and the city of Tartus, and targets including Hezbollah outposts and Iranian bases. At least 3 wounded and 3 others killed, 2 of whom later named as junior Syrian officers. Israel has admitted to hundreds of such airstrikes in recent years, however. So what's most unique about this attack is how surprisingly close they were to Russian naval and air force bases. Russian forces have long maintained a strong presence in Syria, and Moscow unofficially maintains agreements with Jerusalem to turn a blind eye towards Israel's strikes against Iran. This arrangement seen as threatened, however, over disagreements regarding the invasion of Ukraine. And these latest strikes are seen as a move that may further degrade the strained ties. In other news, the autumn Jewish holiday season is quickly approaching, so for anyone looking to purchase a meaningful gift, as well as to support Israeli artisans, the online Mitzvah marketplace is available. Joining me with more is CEO of Western Galilee Now, Michal Shiloach Galnur. Michal, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so, first off, tell me a little bit about what you brought here today.
So this is just a few examples of the wonderful artisanal products and art that you can find on the Mitzvah marketplace. It is all produced by small businesses and artists. Shall I tell you a bit about them?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
I'll kind of check out some of it while you do.
Okay, so for example, this is a calendar made by Kama, like this notebook as well. Kama is a very special place in Kibbutz Harduf in the Western Galilee, where people with disabilities live and work. And this is done in some of their workshops, and you can buy it online on the Mitzvah marketplace.
I love the colors. It's great textures, yeah.
Yeah, so it has also an added value.
All right. And I see we have like some recycled materials.
So this is actually called upcycle art today.
Okay.
So we have Paula Reichen from Studio Teen Time. This is just a small example of wonderful work. Everything that you have left over, you bring it over to Paula, and she makes something new and artistic and funny and a music from it in her beautiful house in the Galilee. The idea is that you can also visit all these places. But while you can't, if you're in the States, you can order them online.
And then these necklaces, they actually really caught my eye because I saw some cool, maybe some paper back on them, like from a book.
Yes, so actually this is made by an artist called Hedva Klein. And she takes books that nobody wants to read anymore, and magazines, and she prepares jewelry out of them.
I see that.
And you can actually order some of them with special words if you want, like peace, love, happiness in Hebrew, English.
Yeah, there's like music notation on here, all sorts of different, cool implied textures here. And are these all like recycled materials? Because if this is from a book.
Yes, this is also, instead of throwing, people know to bring her the books. She also works with libraries and makes something, again, upcycle art, very important nowadays.
All right, now on top of this, I saw earlier off stage that it came in some interesting packaging for the holidays. Is there something about that?
So first of all, when you go online, you can find all the different things, but also you can find some specially made packages for Rosh Hashanah and the holidays. For example, beautiful honey, different types from flowers of the Galilee. If you want to buy and have a taste of Israel with you on the Rosh Hashanah table, for example. There's soaps, natural cosmetics. There's endless opportunities of enjoying these.
All right, so something I need to know, because obviously in Israel we shop online all the time, but back in the States, of course they also do, but shipping from overseas, that takes time, and in Israel, the post is notoriously bad. How long does it take for a shipment to get to the U.S.?
So that's why you have to shop till you drop very, very soon, so it will make it on time. Actually, we've had a really good experience with it. If you want to shop for Rosh Hashanah, do it now. If you want to shop for the holidays, you can do it in the next. Yeah, you have to a couple of weeks. Yes.
Sure. All right. Now I understand that this marketplace was founded by Jewish National Fund USA during the early days of the COVID pandemic. You know, what has this marketplace done for you? What's its significance?
So, as you mentioned, I run Western Galilee now. It's a small business consortium. It actually works on tourism in the region of the Galilee. And of course, that means bringing tourists from Israel and abroad to a region. When COVID started, everything stopped. And all these small businesses it was just before Passover, and everyone was stuck with their jewelry and their honey and their wine and everything. And Jewish National Fund came up with this idea that let's connect the Americans to the Israelis and let them bring over
What's been the response so far?
It was amazing, and it still is amazing. It really, I can tell you that the first order was from a jewelrist, and that he said, you know, after days of having no order, nothing, just thinking that someone's thinking of you made his day, so.
All right, well, Michal, I want to say thank you again for coming in, because these are just really funky and cool and interesting. I love the necklaces. It's really amazing. And everybody at home who wants to check out the Mitzvah Marketplace for yourselves, check it out at shop.jnf.org. Again, Michal, thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Now, speaking of markets, an Israeli company may have solved one of the biggest waste-related issues plaguing the planet at this moment. ILTV's Kayla Everlin with the details.
Nearly 20% of global food production is wasted every year. So between produce going bad before it sells, ugly produce that never had a chance, and an endless supply of plastic packaging, the food industry is a huge contributor to the landfill. But Israeli startup Anina has a solution. The Ashdod-based company takes all these would-be wasted food products, slices them, arranges them into a sheet, and dehydrates them over a mold. Then, Anina fills the dry vegetable packaging with dried legumes, spices, pasta, etc. for a finished ready-made meal with a 6-month shelf life. And best of all, the packaging itself is still edible. All customers need to do is add the capsule and some water into a bowl, microwave for a few minutes, and mix. Currently, Anina offering a vegan line of products, but the company intends to expand soon into smaller fruit-made capsules, as well as into selling the laminates on their own.
On a somber note now, legendary Israeli singer-songwriter Zvika Pick passing away on Sunday at age 72, and the artist laid to rest Monday morning. So with more on Pick's incredible legacy, broadcaster and programmer from Israeli music channel Kan 88, Menachem Granit. Menachem, it's great to have you with us.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Now, all right.
Hi. Hello there.
All right, hello. Pick is credited for writing Eurovision winner Diva, performed by Dana International. His music has inspired stage plays and TV series in Israel.
Yes.
How extensive was his discography in terms of genre, in terms of reach, in terms of number?
Well, you know, first of all, he was different. I could even say that he was not non-Israeli in his approach. I mean, he looked at music as an international thing. He was an international pop star in his own way.
I mean,
he was inspired by...
He was Polish-born, was he not? He immigrated
He was
to
born
Israel.
in Poland, right, 72 years ago, and he received some cultural and international music upbringing. And when he immigrated to Israel with his family, when he was 8 years ago, 8 years old or something like that, he started looking at the Israeli local scene, music scene, and he was different. He was different. He was inspired by international rock and pop music. David Bowie was one of his idols, and that's why he also painted his appearance and dressed differently. And his music, of course, I liked his music very much because it was very major music, very happy music.
Yes.
It was
very clubby, yeah, clubby and poppy.
In a way.
Well, so as I said, Pick inspired TV and stage performances. He played the lead in a Hebrew version of Hair, and he was a judge on Kochav Nolad, which is Israel's American Idol. Tell me more about his influence and legacy on Israeli music.
I don't know if I can speak about influence and legacy because he was different, because he didn't influence anyone. He influenced himself, and he influenced the audience, but not musicians in Israel. The audience and the people liked him, but the press and radio and TV did not go out of its way, to adore Zvika Pick.
Why do you think that is?
And that's very sad.
Why do you think that is?
Because he was different. Because he was different. He was not part of the I don't know how to call it. Like he was not part of the major or special rock pop music family in Israel. All the people who all the musicians who started working and playing music in Israel were part of Israel culture, local culture, like part of I don't know how do you say it in Hebrew, Lakot Tzvayot. And he didn't come. Yeah, he didn't come from that area. He came from rock and pop musicians. Like he was inspired also by Beatles, Rolling Stones, and that kind of stuff. And that was not that was not popular or not well known or not acceptable in Israel.
Well, which is pretty ironic because I feel like that music probably came around to Israel eventually, didn't it? So was Zvika maybe ahead of his time in terms of those influences or
yes,
having those influences?
I think eventually is the right word because, Israel TV started in 1968 only. And Israel was a very provincial state looking at itself and not looking outside. And Zvika Pick didn't look like that. He looked outside. He wanted to be different. He didn't want to be the same. And, it's hard to bring unspecial things like Zvika Pick, very original things, to the local Israeli public. And,
Well, so we know that, only family and friends were generally allowed at the funeral service. They had security blocking out members of the public. How was he eulogized? Who was there at the funeral service? Because as you said, he wasn't necessarily super well known, or maybe not well known, but super influential among Israel's other artists.
Unfortunately, I didn't take part in that the funeral, so I don't really know. But I know that the family didn't want too many people there, and all the fans actually they were afraid that too many fans. I suppose they were afraid that too many fans would come, and spoil the whole thing.
And was he well known outside of Israel then? If he was drawing all these, no.
No. Only in Israel. He didn't. I don't think he even tried an international, career, except for, of course, the Eurovision Song Contest,
which he submitted a couple songs.
Yes, actually, I have to do some justice and say that I was part of the committee that chose Diva for the Eurovision Song Contest at the time.
All right. Well, of course, we could talk about Zvika and other people like him forever. But in the meantime, Menachem, thank you so much for joining us. And Zvika, Zichrono Levracha.
Yeah, Zichrono Levracha. People will remember his music.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. The forecast is calling for clear skies around the region this evening with lows ranging from 18 to 25 degrees Celsius or 64 to 77 Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, the weather remaining consistent with clear and sunny skies, along with temperatures reaching an average of 32 degrees Celsius or 89 Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all of your devices, check out our website, ILTV.tv, and subscribe to our newsletter as well as to our streaming platform, ILTV+. I'm Aaron Porras. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.